What's going on, guys? Joe here at Tech Adventure, and this is the iPad Air 4 along with the Apple Pencil 2 and an Apple case, which you can't really see. So the reason I went with an iPad from the Galaxy Tab S7 Plus is this crazy situation that happened where I was able to get a full refund for my Galaxy Fold Z2, which had a scratch on it, plus an additional $250 in-store credit. It's a long story. Go watch that video if you want to know the rest of it. So with that $2,000 I then had, I went out and bought an iPhone 12 Pro, which is this guy here, and I already had a MacBook that I'd recently purchased. I bought the AirPods Pro, yeah, I think that's what they're called, and then I bought the iPad. I figured I may as well have everything under one ecosystem, like really embrace what Apple has going on. Of course, I didn't get the Apple Watch because I just don't like it. I prefer dumb watches. So here I am with the iPad Air 4. Now in this video, I'm going to walk you through how I use the thing and what I feel is different, better, or worse than the Galaxy Tab S7 Plus. Now right off the bat, I'll tell you that this is not meant to be a pro level tablet. But I think the question is, what does a pro level tablet really mean? What does it do? How is it different from a standard tablet? Now the Galaxy S7 Plus does fall into the pro category for a few reasons. One is overall quality and feature set. Just like the iPad Pro, the Galaxy Tab S7 Plus, which I really want to say just S7 Plus for shorthand, if that's an agreement between all of us, the S7 Plus, just like the iPad Pro, has a 120 Hz display. So that refresh rate makes for a more smooth operation. It also helps reduce lag when you're doing drawing on the tablet. So if you're sketching, I think that's where it's going to be the most perceived. I don't sketch, but we'll get to my use cases in a moment. Also, speakers. So this has two speakers, whereas the S7 Plus and the iPad Pro have quad speakers. So presumably, you'll get better audio overall between the different levels, the different ranges of the audio spectrum, as well as clarity and volume. Also, from the microphone and camera side, on the iPad Pro, they are improved over the iPad Air. And I feel like the iPad Air is sort of on par with the S7 Plus. But unfortunately, I didn't hang on to the S7 Plus long enough to do a side-by-side comparison. I never thought I'd actually make a video about this because I figured it's an iPad Air. It's not going to be super fun and super exciting, so why bother? Now, there's one last thing, and that's the camera for facial recognition. So on the iPad Pro, as well as on the S7 Plus, there's face recognition to get signed in. And I can't remember what Apple calls it. On the Air, there's just a biometric with the finger. So it's Touch ID up here at the top, and it works really well. You can press down on the power button and then keep your finger held onto it, and by releasing pressure as well, so it doesn't go into like a, hey, do you want to restart cycle? And then it will unlock the machine. So that's pretty cool. Now, what this effectively is, though, this Air, is all of those things the Pro has, but without them. So it's none of those things that the Pro has. I don't even know the refresh rate on this thing. I imagine it's 60 Hertz. I don't know what the lag is for the input of a pen. I don't know how many milliseconds it is. But I can tell a difference when I'm writing, which is what I do. I don't sketch. I write handwritten notes. I can tell that the display, the overall lag is greater than it is on the S7 Plus and on the iPad Pro, which I've only used in store. So with all of that out of the way, let's talk about use cases. Here's the reason I use a tablet. It really comes down to two things. Number one, professionalism. Whether I'm in person for a meeting, which doesn't happen as much anymore, yada yada, or I'm in a Zoom conference or some kind of video conference, I don't want people seeing me type. I don't want them hearing me type. I don't want them seeing me looking at another screen that's sort of like blocking them from me, right, if I'm in person. That's where a tablet can be really effective. You can take handwritten notes, which is, I think, more professional. It looks like, what else could I possibly be doing other than writing something down with the pen that's about our meeting, right? Now, of course, I could be doing something else, but the available options to me as someone who's literally just doing this, right, is lesser than somebody who's on a machine typing, right? Like the camera's here and I'm over here typing. Clearly, in that case, I could be doing something more distracting. So with the iPad Pro, the other reason that I go with tablets, sorry, I didn't mean iPad Pro, iPad Air. The other reason I go with tablets is for like when I'm in a pinch, right? So taking my laptop around is not that big of a deal. I'm currently using the 3-pound MacBook Pro 13. It's not that heavy or inconvenient. It's a very nice machine. I feel like I can take it up and around, no big deal. But sometimes I have to do things outside of the house and I don't necessarily want to take around my fancy laptop for it. I don't want to be in a position where I have to find a comfortable area to get something done. So if I know that my workload is going to be lighter than writing long emails or lots of emails or writing long responses in Slack, then a tablet fits perfectly into that use case. I can just grab this thing, it's super light, tiny, portable, the pen is super convenient, and I can go off and do the thing that I need to do, and then I'm still in the position to take handwritten notes, which might look a little funny if I'm on a video conference, but I have that capability right here. So other than that, there's no reason for me to have a tablet. So spending $800, $1,200 on an iPad Pro it's not really a good idea. Now for me, for others, I totally get it. You may want the keyboard experience as well, maybe ditch the Ultrabook and just use that iPad Pro as your everyday Ultrabook. Totally get that. That was my intention with the Galaxy S7 Plus. There I go again saying the whole name. With the S7 Plus, I figured that's what I want. I don't want to lug around a laptop. I want to be able to use DeX mode, which is like a desktop simulation, and do all of my everyday computing, email, Slack, Discord, the whole deal, right there from a 12.4-inch tablet device. What I found was the experience was so inferior to a dedicated laptop type form factor, well, exactly that form factor, that I was dissuaded from actually doing it. Like taking the time to, get everything set up and switching to DeX mode, and then off I go typing away, and the keyboard's more cramped and the screen is more cramped. It worked. It totally worked. It was good in a pinch. But I want to blame Android for this and then that small form factor. So I went specifically with a small sub 11-inch display on the iPad Air. Now I could have gone with the 11-inch iPad Pro, but without the necessity, without needing or wanting, I should say, to use that as an Ultrabook, it just felt like it would be a big waste of money. Instead, for this 64 gigabyte storage model, which is the entry-level model, open boxed, I paid just $550. I did have to pay $110 open box for the Apple Pencil 2, but I'm glad that I did. It is a good pen. They call it a pencil. It's a good stylus, and I really don't have any complaints. Now, what I've been using this tablet for primarily is note-taking, and I haven't branched out and tried any fancy note-taking applications like Evernote. I've been in Apple Notes, just the default notes program that Apple supplies. The reason I did that was twofold. Number one, I didn't want to spend any money on another app. And number two, and of course get them all set up. And then number two, everything is already syncing between my MacBook, my phone, and my tablet. So it's all there. I can start my writing experience on the iPad and see how I like it, do my assessment before trying anything more comprehensive. What I found is that while I was initially disappointed with Apple Notes, I'm actually quite happy with it. I'm very satisfied. I feel like Apple Notes does the job for me. I only need a few things to take my notes. Number one is a file system or some type of easy way to stack all of my files together into a logical arrangement. So I need folders, nested folders, and files. Even nested folders isn't completely required. So foldering, totally there. Check the box. The next thing was a little bit of personalization for the actual paper layout. I like having horizontal lines like you would see in a what they call a college ruled or a fixed ruled piece of actual physical paper. You can do that with the iPad Air's inherent note application, but I didn't know that at first, hence my initial disappointment. The other thing was some personalization around how the stylus actually draws. I don't like thick ink, even in real life. I prefer a very fine tip. You can't change the tips. Well, you can change the tips on the Apple Pencil, but it doesn't ship with different tips. I find this tip to be just a little bit too, I'm not going to get this in focus, there we go, too thick. So by default, it was too thick on the Notes tab, but I went in and changed it and personalized it, and I'm pretty happy with that. Now, the other thing that disappointed me at first is that I didn't realize you can change the eraser from a well, I don't know what the term would be, I guess an actual pixel to pixel eraser. So if you draw an M and then you want to erase the M, you have to go draw the M again with the eraser tip. There is a way by holding down for a couple of seconds on the eraser icon in the Notes application to change it to an object eraser, which is the default in Samsung Notes, which is what I'm used to. Once I switched it to the object eraser, everything was way more smooth and more in line with my liking. I mean, can you imagine writing 3 or 4 words and realizing you don't want it there and you gotta go like that to get rid of it? Terrible, terrible. So the object eraser really helps, and of course there's the undo button as well. Now switching is very simple. You just tap the pencil and it switches from drawing tip to erasing tip. There are other tips as well that you can use, different types of pen. One of them that I will use often, well, more often than not, is the selection tool. So it's hard to tell, if you ask me, that this particular tip is the selection tip, but once you find it, you can select an object, so a string of text or something you drew, and then you can move it around the screen wherever you want it. Sometimes that happens where I'll take a note, then I want to take that sentence and move it further down my page or up the page, etc. There's one other thing that I didn't realize was possible until I saw it on a YouTube video, and I wish I could tell you which YouTube video it was, but the guy who showed this video, thank you so much. So if you want to create a shape, say a box, all you have to do is draw the box and then hold your stylus to the end of the box, you know, when you're completing the box, just hold it right there, like in a corner, and then the software will know, it'll recognize you're trying to draw a cube, and so then it will. And you can do the same thing for triangles, circles, and other types of, you know, regular geometric shapes that we use for various things, like creating Venn diagrams or even tables. And I found myself creating a table and then copying it and pasting it around other files, because now I've created my one table that was like just perfect. It didn't have any, like, you know, anything sticking out. It was a great solid table, and I was able to do that, you know, more conveniently. So I've found that the iPad absolutely works for my use cases at a price that comes in a lot lower than what I paid for the S7 Plus with the keyboard, as well as an iPad Pro would cost me even without the keyboard. So is this device for you? Let me tell you something. As somebody who owns a business, who works with clients, who's in meetings, gosh, way more than I want to be, right? Probably half of my day is spent in meetings, video or in person, mostly video now. Get away from taking notes with the keyboard. The sound of a keyboard, having people see you, potentially distracted looking at a screen, I think it's not wise. I think it's unwelcoming in a meeting setting, whether you're trying to sell something or you're trying to show that you're taking the lead on a project, an assessment, something like that, whatever people meet to talk about. If you're taking handwritten notes, 2 things happen. Number one, I think you look way more professional, right? You're showing interest in your client, your colleague, whomever it happens to be. And then the second thing is memory recall, memory recognition. Now, this isn't my area of expertise, but I can tell you from my own personal experience, having switched to handwritten notes many years ago, I feel like I recall what I'm talking about with somebody if I have to do this. If I have to listen to someone talk, right? Lay out, I ask an open-ended question, they give me a response, or maybe they initiate the conversation. I have to distill several sentences into a couple of key points. I tend to write in bullets, right? So somebody said 30 words, here are 5 bullets about those 30 words. That translation process, which you could do with a keyboard, right? But regardless, that's the first step. That translation process helps me remember what's important and why I met with this person, what I need to do next, right? It helps kind of put a framework together for the purpose of the meeting. The second thing that happens by actually writing it down, so this is where it separates from the keyboard, is there's something about going through that motion, truly, of writing, drawing out letters and forming words and sentences and concepts. There's something about that that makes me remember it better. Certainly I could be wrong. Well, I'm not wrong. I know it works for me, but maybe it doesn't work for you. I would encourage you to give it a shot. And you may find that your tablet, which can do so many other things, right? Like, I don't know, play games, and you could watch movies and stuff like that on it. Your tablet, which can do so much more, you may find can do something pretty awesome for your career and for your relationships, if that's a thing. If you take notes when you go out, have coffee with your friend or something. I don't know. I don't do that. That's weird. Anyhow, thanks for watching. This is Tech Adventure. So this isn't the last video about the iPad Air. If you have questions, if you have requirements, things that you want me to take a look at, as long as it's on message, as long as I will do it. I'll jump in there. I'll run the thing, see how it goes, as long as the app isn't a whole bunch of money or whatever it is you want me to do. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.